All right. Normally, I probably wouldn't even let this, I wouldn't even respond to this particular sort of nonsense by this guy, Dr. Allo, who is a cardiologist. But because it perhaps represents an opportunity to sort of educate some people on some of the sort of the nuances around things like CGM, continuous glucose monitor. So basically, the other day I said, here's the last 2 weeks of my CGM data, and I just been eating beef and salt, and here's what it shows. And basically, what it shows is, let me respond. So in response to me posting this Dr. Allo, who is clearly very much against carnivore diets, against low carb and ketogenic diets for that matter, and very much sort of steeped in the traditional cardiology sort of thought, says that, well, I wouldn't be bragging that you have, basically diabetic blood glucose on this graph, and that, this is what you get when you get an orthopedic surgeon who starts to strays from his lane and should stay in his lane, and the fact that eating all protein results in this. And, again, there are so many problems with this, and I'll first of all address them a little at a time. First of all, I don't eat all protein. In fact, most of my diet is fat. I eat steaks, but they're mostly, by calorically, they're mostly fat. So he doesn't even understand what a carnivore diet is for the first thing. Secondly, the fact that he says I'm not a medical doctor. Of course, I have a medical degree. I have an MD, medical doctor. It's very much what it is. I don't practice surgery anymore. I mean, basically 100% of my focus has been on lifestyle nutrition for the last 7 to 8 years, I think. Yeah, since about 8 years ago. So, I mean, I'm very much in my lane at this point. The other thing he says is, I guess I could criticize the fact that he's a DO, a doctor of osteopath, whereas I'm an MD now. I've met some fine DOs, and the training is very similar. But I mean, the honest answer is harder to get into medical school for an MD than it is to get into DO school for a DO. I mean, that's just the difference. Typically, the people that often can't get into medical school go into DO school. Not that there aren't incredibly moronic MDs, and not that there aren't incredibly good DOs, and many of them do the same residency. In fact, I practice with DOs. Many of them are fine. But to make that criticism that I'm not a medical doctor because I'm a surgeon is absolute nonsense. Now, the real issue here is the guy, and again, a lot of people aren't used to seeing CGMs, and a lot of doctors honestly aren't. But had he not criticized me, I would probably let this slide. But again, he doesn't know how to read a chart, apparently. This is a chart, a 2-week summary. Clearly, the dates that it's talking about are listed. This is the 2-week period that we're looking at. It shows average blood glucose, and it shows the averages for the hours of the day, the 3-hour blocks throughout the day. What he is confusing is, there's one number that said 97. So at between 6 and 9 p.m. over those two weeks period, the blood glucose averaged 97, which means could be a little lower, could be a little higher. What he's mistaking that with is that supposed to be a fasting number, and it's not. It's a postprandial number. Actually, it's a post-workout number, most likely the time of the day. I'm training really hard. I'm cranking up. I'm doing heavy deadlifts, sprinting, and so you'll see a bump in your blood glucose during those times. That explains some of the variation we see during the different time frames throughout the day. And so to equate a CGM 2-week overall average reading with a fasting blood glucose is ridiculous. The 87 average that I have is kind of sort of in line with a hemoglobin A1C of about 4.8 or so, which is clearly not diabetic. So the guy has no clue what he's talking about when it comes to reading CGM data. In fact, most people would be thrilled to see CGM, that data, whether they're diabetic or not, a normal person. If we were to look at a random blood glucose of somebody, that's not diabetic, is very likely they're often above 100. In fact, we consider up to 140 normal. So he is clueless when it comes to evaluating CGM data, diabetes data, blood glucose data, which makes sense in the comments he's made before, saying that only a tiny number of people in the U.S. actually have diabetes. When we know the number is at 11%, and the number that have pre-diabetes is close to something like 50% at this point. So he is again showing his cluelessness. If he wants to talk about staying in his lane, he better not. He's clearly clueless when it comes to diabetes. I talk to diabetics every single day. And a carnivore diet has been incredibly effective at positively impacting diabetes, to normalize blood glucose, to reverse, in many cases, the end organ effects of diabetes. We're talking about retinopathy, blood vessels in the eye. We're talking about nephropathy or the kidney function. We see those things actually get better. People with disease actually get better on a carnivore diet. So much to the point that we are about to start an we're about to start an interventional trial, a randomized control trial using a carnivore diet against diabetes. So anyway, hopefully, if Dr. Allo watches this, hopefully he'll learn how to read a CGM. For you guys that are wondering, CGMs give minute by minute, or sometimes 5 minutes, depending on the brand, values on blood glucose. And it doesn't always need to be below 100. It's just that the average needs to be ideally below 100, well, not even below 100. The average hemoglobin A1C, the average blood glucose for a normal person might see an average blood glucose of 105, 108. That would still be well below the pre-diabetic range, right? So when you look at average number, not just fasting numbers are going to be below 100, but an average number might be 103, 105. An average of 103 is going to be like a 5.2 A1C. So again, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So anyway, you guys take care. Now you guys know a little bit more. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.